This is things you might not have heard, and I am Jay Cleveland Payne. I have for you today 8 stories queued up for you from Monday that you deem were conversational. They cover information, politics, current events, and pop culture news. And we are talking about the National Guard in LA because as we speak right now, this is day 4 of the siege, of the riots, of the protests, whatever you want to call them, because you can call them any number of things. 4 days of unrest in downtown LA because of the ICE raids happening on Saturday. Now, we also talk about Canada stepping up to its game for NATO. For good or for ill, we'll see if that's working out. And the Southern Baptists are getting their voices heard, and you want to know exactly what they want to talk about. Plus, 5 other stories are in the mix for today. The vetting process to explain how we pick these stories is coming up, but remind you right now the 3 things to get you into our main matrix is our website. This is conversationproject.com. More details about the background, what we have going on. Email me at the conversation inbox at gmail.com for conversation offline, what we call it. And our spotlight sponsor for today is Ground News. See them at this. It's the conversationproject.com/ground news. This is an affiliate link. We click this link. We get a small affiliate commission from them, and you'll get 40% off their Vantage plans. How about that one? Today is Tuesday, the 10th of June. No particular order as the stories are presented. We'll talk about engagement, talk about how things line up. But the big thing about the stories are this is the best way we think the narrative should go from top to bottom. No real kicker story today, no real funny story at the end, but all the stories today we think are very relevant and they're the best storylines that we can give to you in the 8 stories we have to choose from. So let's get into it. Why don't we? Starting things off with Gavin Newsom. And this is a story that's actually escalating as I'm speaking. We pulled some news pieces to write the story from essentially what was produced yesterday. But as I'm watching the news in the early morning stages, the 5 a.m., 4 a.m. news right now, they're talking Newsom, they're talking arrest, they're talking what Trump wants to think about this one. And this one's going to go a long time. But a lot is happening in Los Angeles. As we said, 4 days of unrest, protests, riots, or whatever your side wants to call them. But the big story we have on this one is the feedback that's coming from the Californians. And California is filing a suit against the president in federal court happening yesterday pretty quickly, as was said by Gavin Newsom, contesting the president's use and deployment of troops of National Guard fame and Marines to Los Angeles, from the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Burbank. We're seeing the Marines. 7 Marines have been basically activated to come in and do essentially riot work coming forward. The state argues that this move was carried out without Governor Newsom's authorization and exceeded the federal powers under Title 10, lacking the rebellion or invasion to justify the deployment. Newsom and Attorney General Rob Bonta asserted that the federal station of troops without state assent violates the Constitution and the 10th Amendment. They say in order for bypass necessary to coordinate with this stuff didn't happen. It wasn't, or the border actually bypassed the coordination. It didn't happen when in coordination. And essentially the president just said, I'm putting troops down there to protect our democracy when they are protecting federal buildings, which is valid, but no coordination, no saying we're doing this, and not allowing Governor Newsom to call the National Guard, his actual National Guard. Instead, the governor had his guard federalized by the president to stop the invasion, stop the insurrection, a word we may have heard a couple of years back. The mayor of Los Angeles, Karen Bass, also said that deployment was politically driven, basically used to put a wedge between the people and make some brownie points for Donald Trump and his points. The LA police chief acknowledges the law enforcement was managing unrest until federal troops arrived, essentially said they did have it under control. Federal troops essentially made the situation worse, and now things are getting bigger because, ironically, the protesters now see a bigger target and more reason to fight because they're federal troops on the scene and not just the regular police. Protests were sparked by ICE raids happening over the weekend, which includes some clashes with police who were doing their job to keep them down, freeway blockades, which are essentially illegal, and the vandalism. You've seen the pictures of the Waymo cars on fire. You've seen the pictures of the protesters throwing the Lime scooters. You've seen rocks. You've seen fireworks. You've seen those things happening. Although the reports are things were peaceful at the beginning, things escalated fairly quickly when the federal troops essentially arrived. Essentially seeing them as a target made the things worse. That's what we're seeing in some coverage. Now, if you're not seeing the coverage and all you have is what you're hearing from basis parts of social media, you may hear something a bit different. Legal experts are saying that the first use of Title 10 in this case, federalized troops, was actually in 65 when the civil rights liberties groups used it or had it used to actually support what was going on at the time. And that was integrating schools, allowing black children to go to white schools where mobs of people were essentially fighting them off. This is a case where the immigration authorities were pulling out immigration orders. They were doing what they were doing their job, doing their job, and just going to full people who were here past visas or here illegally, and what's inside of protests that were happening. Essentially, is protesting the fact that they're targeting target specifically, and it has escalated very quickly. There are other protests around the nation on these things, and protests specifically in San Francisco, or I'm sorry, San Diego, where there are illegally loud protests. But Los Angeles downtown has been declared a non-legal assembly with all that's going on. You can see that with the people covering faces and throwing things at folks. But right now, I'm not sure that 700 Marines is going to make it any better. In fact, seems like mounting Marines in an attack on U.S. soil would only make it worse. So, in order to stay relevant, I would say Trump did something newish to do something to make people scratch their heads. On top of sending Marines to Los Angeles to invade Los Angeles as if it was something out of Bushwick, Trump is also moving to cut Pell Grants, which is going to raise concerns about access to college for low-income students. And your mileage may vary on what the actual purpose of this is, but this is cutting waste, fraud, and abuse. Apparently, Trump believes that low-income students don't finish school, and it's a waste to send them to money to go to school. The budget proposal for 2026 calls for reducing the maximum Pell Grant from $7,395 to $5,710 for the 26-27 school year. A 23% drop in the first cut since 1993. The cited reason is a $2.7 billion funding gap. And so we have to save money. So we'll have 25% less money for folks in Pell Grants. About 6 to 7 million students actually depend on Pell Grants, mostly from families earning under $60,000 a year. Half the all undergrads count on this aid, and experts say cutting the maximum award would significantly hinder lower income students to afford college. Cutting off that $2,000 in the process is a lot less money to pay for colleges, even on the low end for college. In addition to lowering the payout, the proposal seeks to require students to take more credits, pushing part-time students out of any Pell Grant work and eliminating support for those under half time. The change could leave at least 10% of current Pell Grant students with no aid whatsoever. Pell Grant cuts are part of a bigger part of the big, beautiful bill. You've heard a lot about that being talked around, passed by Congress. It also does target Medicaid work requirements and eliminates subsidies for loans, caps borrowing based on programs, and invites private lenders to fill in the gaps. So if you can't find the money, someone can lend the money to you, but the government is not going to do what it was doing in the past to help people out. And I use that word specifically, help people out, whether you see it as a help or a hinder for the government or the people. Critics warn this push may advance more folks to higher student loan debt going forward. And since the government doesn't like to do much in the way of relief on that end, more things will happen. Colleges and aid groups are pushing back, with Laredo College passing a resolution opposing the change, stressing how part-time learners, working parents, caregivers would be the hit hardest. People who are working on their own pace to get to these levels would see the worst cases of these things hurting them because they'd have to stop working to go full-time to school, and they can't afford that. The National Association of Student Financial Aid Administrators warns the cuts jeopardize decades of bipartisan commitment. So what you're seeing is people saying this is a bad idea on all ends. This could be a very serious hindrance to low-income, part-time community college students who are just reaching for higher education in the best way they can. This is not going to hurt anybody who can pay to go to Yale or Harvard or any large-time state school that has big football programs that will pay for itself. This is going to hurt the people on the low ends. This is going to people who work in the low ends of schools. This is going to hurt me personally because I work at a 2-year college where many people do rely on Pell Grants. And that backlash, that unintended consequences will probably be felt much quicker than many other things that have happened in Trump 2.0. Oh, Consequences of this one may be pretty big pretty quickly. Happening yesterday, Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. dismissed all 17 members of the CDC's Advisory Committee for Immunization Practices, or ACIP, if you will. He announced this move in an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal via his HHA's press release. Not, well, I guess it was a press release, but it was put out in the Wall Street Journal, not on a press conference, not to reporters, not in a memo to his folks inside, just on a press release that went out on a big paper that only really hoity-toity people actually read. Experts say this is an abrupt break of the long-established review practices. Kennedy said the panel suffered from conflicts of interest and too often accepted a rubber stamp approach for pharmaceutical companies. He argued that the change would restore public trust in vaccine policy, and the scientists and medical leaders are basically saying no. The American Medical Association called this move undermining the public confidence. Dr. Paul Offit, the former ACIP member and legal scholar, noted that legal authorities existed, but questioning the timing of the lack of consultation on this thing is there. Maybe he could have did this, but just doing it in an op-ed in the middle of a crisis in Los Angeles when nobody's paying attention might have been poor timing or better timing based on how you want to count your timing. The advisory panel shapes vaccine use guidelines for doctors, insurers, and patients. Its sudden removal has stalled planning ahead for upcoming ACIP meetings, which you may see as a waste of time, but it also, replacing members too quickly can weaken the existence of fact-based oversight. Essentially, having people who know how things work and having new people come in may not be as great as you think it is. Shakeup actually has some issues for the markets as well. Moderna and Pfizer stocks dipped on the news because who's in charge? And public health officials fear that the change may further destabilize vaccination efforts, already strained by rising measles outbreaks, which may be the point. Our fourth story for this morning. This is one that literally was probably slipping the cracks. No one was really covering it. I saw links on it in various places, various forums. It seems like it may be more of an issue than we are putting into. So this is one of those stories that did get some engagement. You guys did see this and say, hey, this is interesting, but maybe not be one of the top high-ranking stories going forward. Yes, we'll get to Justin Baldoni in a moment. But the House Homeland Security Chair, Mark Green, has announced he's resigning from Congress. Effective immediately. He's not going to figure out trying to run for re-election. He's just done. The chair of this committee, Mark Green, the Republican from Tennessee, announced yesterday he's going to resign after the House votes on the big, beautiful bill within days, essentially. He cited that it's too exciting to not be in the private sector to have a job. His motivation is he's going to go get a real job right now because of the things that are happening. He wants a real job instead of helping run the Congress, run Congress right now. His departure shrinks the narrow Republican majority. With Green's seat gone, the GOP's margin stands at 219 and 212, leaving Speaker Mike Johnson with a little room for losses. Every vote will definitely count going forward, as it did before. One less vote makes it that much harder to get things done. Green has represented Tennessee's 7th district since 2019. He's a retired Army flight surgeon who led the impeachment efforts against DHS Secretary Mayorkas and pushed for border security funding. His midterm resignation won't stall the current vote, but it'll change committee dynamics because he's in charge of one and have to reshuffle things. Tennessee law requires Governor Bill Lee to call a special election within 10 days, and a primary must follow 55 to 60 days later. General election within about 100 days of vacancy. The district heavily favors Republicans, so it's likely to stay in Republican hands. It won't be an issue for long, we believe, but pulling out, as we just said in the last story about having people who know how to do things and then new people coming in may not be exactly what we're looking for, or maybe exactly what you want because you want someone who's more pliable and will do more or less what is being told. He actually He actually planned to retire last year, then held on because pressure from President Trump saying they needed him to stick around. So the exit is not exactly a surprise. How it's going and not waiting for the midterm to have a full election is the surprise part. And it will shift internal power in the GOP with inside the margins for a while, but we'll see exactly how this plays out for Green and for all of us, U.S. and the world, with this one shift. This one person may not seem to make a difference, but in a world where one vote does make a difference in these cases, we shall see. We pause from the news for just a moment. We need you to do us a bit of a favor. Now, if you want to troll us, trolling is fine. Just make sure you keep watching new videos, not complaining about videos that are a week old and saying it's not breaking news because you can't read dates. But we do need you to like, share, and subscribe to the work that we do, specifically this one right here, because this one comes out live 5:30 a.m. Central Time, Monday through Friday. Every single day we do a 10 and 8 to 8 story newscast here, and we need you to like it and like it live, like it while it's going on, so we can see what's happening in real time. If more people like it, whether it's live or replay, that means the algorithm will share it with more folks to see my content, which is great. If you know people who enjoy it, share it them directly, and hopefully they will like it as well and share it going forward. Now, the more I see in the likes and the more I see in shares and things and comments, the more I know that I'm picking the right stories, things that are having impact. On the flip side, the more comments I get that are essentially trolling, and some of you guys make trolling look terrible because you're really bad at it, the more I know that I'm either striking a nerve or the bots are back. Either way, I can use the likes and the shares and all those things. Like it so we get more people in the News Nation, whether you actually enjoy us or you might actually secretly hate us, but love us enough to hate us. And we need you all to subscribe in whatever form is best for you. Go to the website, this is a conversationproject.com, and see if that form is going to be, one thing here. It may be the normal videos we have here, the long form videos for Facebook and X and for YouTube. It may be the short ones, the hot takes on on YouTube Shorts and on TikTok. It may be the audio podcast wherever your podcasts. It could be our email newsletter. Whatever's the best way for you to follow us. We need you to follow us. We need more engagement, more growth. We need to grow this thing up, and we really need folks to subscribe on YouTube. That's our gauge. That's our focus. That's our North Star. We're slowing down in the subscriber rate, but we still have our designs of hitting that mark for this year, hitting the double mark on this year. We can do it. It is possible, but I need your help. Like, share, and subscribe to help us grow the News Nerd Nation. Let's talk about Canada. And this picture we have in the teaser graphic is not one that you really respect going for Canada, except, since we're invading Los Angeles, maybe we actually will invade Canada. But Canada is actually going to do something that Donald Trump has been asking for a while. They're going to hit their NATO spending target and reduce their dependence on the United States. The Prime Minister said yesterday they're going to reach their 2% NATO target for GDP defense spending by early 2026, which is 5 years ahead of the schedule that they're going to do it. A major pivot from previous plans that had the goal set for 2030, with Carney, the Prime Minister, describing Canada's current military as outdated. Only 1 in 4 submarines actually work, believe it or not. Fewer than half of the naval and land vehicles are functional. Plan to get back to action, calls for billions in new spending on subs, on ships, on aircraft, on drones, Arctic radar, which they live in, and artillery. Wrong button. Sorry about that. As a key goal to shifting the procurement away from U.S. suppliers is to basically find other folks that will build stuff for them. Carney said Canada will no longer send 3/4 of its defense dollars to the U.S. Instead, they're going to spend it on their own options and NATO and buy jets from hardware from other NATO allies and not just refurbish things from the U.S. This is coming right before the G7 summit happening in Alberta and a NATO meeting in Europe coming after that, where spending benchmarks potentially as high as 5% are expected. Carney framed the boost as rooted in national security, not appeasing NATO accountants. So Carney has warned of multiplying threats pointing to Russia and China, and they want to be prepared for that one. They also know that they're having some issues with U.S. leadership, and they might say the quote-unquote new imperialism that the U.S. is putting on may leave them vulnerable for a lot of attacks. And since, as Canada says, their military is not quite up to snuff in equipment, maybe even training, they need to step up their game and step it up faster. Analysts view this move as a part of a strategy to rebuild the strained Canada-U.S. relations, although it does seem more or less like a thumbing back at one group to another. A shift towards more independent defense, it's great, a great posture, or maybe more or less a grouping, because in the past we talked about how Canada has stepped up to support the U.S. in all of its endeavors whenever things goes on, and all Canada has not had many endeavors to step up to. May have issues in the fact that we're not talking about its proud naval and aerial history because apparently the submarines don't actually work. Now, this picture and this story. One of the most important stories. This was the biggest story in all engagement and out the day yesterday, as you would think so. And what we have is a win or a loss. Definitely not a draw, but we don't have a win for all of us yet because we're still talking about these people. But I think we're going to take Ryan Reynolds' name out of our mouths because the $400 million lawsuit filed by Justin Baldoni against Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds has been dismissed. That lawsuit, this defamation and extortion lawsuit against Lively, Ryan Reynolds, and a publicist and the New York Times have all been dropped. Now, it's not completely gone. There's a chance to refile it. But the judge said that Lively's accusations of sexual harassment were legally protected, not subject to defamation claims. And he also dismissed a $250 million case against the Times as well. There were two cases, essentially. Judge Lewis Lindman ruled that the statements made in Lively's complaint in the California Civil Rights Department were privileged. Baldoni failed to show that Lively or any journalist knowingly spread falsehoods, a requirement for defamation against the people in the law case. He can refile this specific claims and like contact interference and do that by June 23rd. He has 13 days to refile for different pieces, but the broader defamation and extortation claims are going to be dismissed again if put out there again. Basically, the big I've been defamed, they're talking bad about me. No, but specific claims, one-on-one that may have actually had some bite, he can actually refile in about 2 weeks or within about 2 weeks. Lively's legal team called this a total victory and complete vindication, saying that the suit was a sham. They announced plans to seek attorney fees and punitive damage from this suit, and Lively, Reynolds, and the publicist were all cleared from this one. So the case is still going because Lively's suit is still on track. It's still liable, it's still there, and that's going to go to trial in March of 2026. So we still have a year to deal with that part, but the Baldoni part of it is basically gone unless he can file something in 2 weeks that's actually worthy of filing. This is a story that I almost missed. It flew under the radar. It was on the websites. It was in the links. It was there at various places. But because so much emphasis was put on the Marines showing up in Los Angeles, a lot of the other news stories did not get taken care very well. And that's why we do Conversation Project. That's why we do Things Not Heard. These are stories that you may have missed that will mean something to you. This one will mean a lot more to you than you may want it to, because this is about TV as it stands today, entertainment as it lives today, and as it won't live going in the future, as Warner Brothers Discovery will divide into two standalone companies by mid-2026. One focused on streaming and studios. That would be HBO, HBO Max, Warner Brothers Television and Motion Pictures, DC Studios, with the other being cable networks, CNN, TNT Sports, Discovery, Discovery Plus, and the Bleacher Report. The move acknowledges the media landscape reshaped by cord cutting and streaming dominance. Essentially, Warner Brothers Discovery is realizing it ain't winning, and it must do something to save parts of itself, if not all of itself, in parts going forward. The CEO of everything for the moment, David Zaslav, will lead the streaming and studios division, while the CFO, Gunnar Wildefels, will oversee the cable networks and the global networks entity. Each company will be publicly traded and aim at focusing on distinct audience trends and revenue models, which is why it caught my attention in the business level, because that means Warner Brothers Discovery, WBD, will split into two separate stocks at some point in time. And you can either get in on the ground floor now and get both of them when they split. If they work that way, they allow you to get both pieces, or figure out which one you want in the actual split. Cable revenues have dropped sharply. So if you're making money off Warner Brothers Discovery, you're one of the lucky ones, gotten fairly early. The unit still carries most of the $34 to $37 million debt that is being held. Global networks will maintain up to 20% stake in streaming studios to help reduce some of the burden for the switch. Investors responded by nearly 10% stock surge on the news because people want in now because they think it will be better in the future. And like I said, when the old thing happens, you may get a chance to twofer on this one. The reversal is effectively unraveling what happened in 2022, the merger that created the monster that is Warner Brothers Discovery. The companies say that the shift will give each unit more agility and power to compete against their rivals, being Netflix, Disney, and other streaming rivals, and whatever is left of cable. It's pretty much what Comcast is doing as well. It's pretty much what all the big industry doing as well. There was a call to bring everything together to save itself, to make sure you had a piece of everything. Now it's a split. It's a breakup. It's bits and pieces to fight bits and pieces. We'll see how they react going forward. The analysts see the split as a way to unlock value and sharpen strategic focus. So if you're trying to make money off these guys, now's the time to get in right now before it races up too high and before the actual split happens. Our final story for the day. As I say, no kicker today. This is an interesting story that it was going to make it in regardless. You guys engaged in it. You guys had the thought process on it. But this is one that is a part of the zeitgeist that is us right now. There are so many things happening in our world that people seem to be losing focus on the values, and your values can be based on whatever you want to. Southern Baptist Convention wants to focus on their values, focus on spreading their values across the world with their denomination. They are looking to condemn porn, sports betting, same-sex marriage, and here's the thing, voluntary childlessness, which may be the actual controversial thing in the mix. As a gathering in Dallas has happened this week, the Southern Baptist Convention are voting on what they're going to call their points. It's the largest Protestant denomination in the U.S. Several resolutions to go on. One is banning pornography and sports betting by law. They're going to push to basically say, DraftKings is no longer legal. Las Vegas, no longer legal. Pornography, pretty much done. It's no longer it's no longer a free speech issue. It's by law. Pornography and sports betting, by definition, whatever they are going to go away. Reversing same-sex marriage rights, getting rid of those across the board, and opposing what they call willful childlessness, the more controversial of these things. Delegates say these moves uphold a divine order for marriage, family, and sexuality. Now, the resolution won't stop there. They urge lawmakers to defund Planned Parenthood, overturn the 2015 Supreme Court ruling on marriage equality, and ban abortion pills. Such efforts come with a wave of conservative Christian activism tied to the national political shifts. Besides public policy, the convention will revisit its own structure. They are going to propose a ban on churches led by women pastors and discussing whether to weaken or potentially disband the public policy arm, which the Ethics and Religious Liberty Commission, what they call that. Critics argue that the commission has strayed from its core conservative values and are now becoming a part of the problem. Despite its influence, the nomination continues a long membership decline. It fell by 260,000 in 2024. Still, the Baptists and attendees are rising. People showing up for conventions are growing. So more people want to be vocal and have their voices heard. Just less people in the pews in Sunday mornings. Leaders hope that these resolutions will hope to reassert moral clarity and revive energy, especially among its base of many states like Texas. Moves echo a broader Christian nationalist trend. Allies in the House, like Speaker Mike Johnson, are in power, and they have a way to sort of help make things happen. Southern Baptist Convention stances on social issues reflect emerging faith and policy for them, not necessarily all over Christianity, not necessarily an American thing, but for Christian nationalists in particular. Internal tensions, race, gender, and the role of church leadership suggest the path forward won't be smooth, but they're going to vote these things in some way, in, out, or whatever, and see what's happening. Like I said, the most controversial may be willful childlessness. People who don't want to have children, which seems like something that you might want to stay out of. But apparently SBC thinks they know best. And they think they have this from a higher authority. And they believe that authority will give them the power to push their agenda. 8 stories for this Monday. 8 stories for the rest of the week, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Stories that are already queued up, ready to go for you to engage in, which is how we get these stories in. You tell us what stories are worthy of chatting up, are out there. One is how appendix cancers are on the rise in younger generations. Find a new study. Also, a ex-New Orleans jail worker has been charged with aiding the high-profile breakout from a few weeks back, helping the 10 guys get out of jail. And the Army is getting back together from the Army, believe it or not, as BTS looks to reunite this year. 2 more members finished their military service, so much faster than you believe, and the dreams are coming back. BTS, although they are now in their 30s, not quite the plucky teenagers, you will see the BTS Army coming back to forums around the world very soon. These are 3 stories that are in our queues. They are stories that are in our Facebook and our X feeds. We call them feeds because that's what they are to us. So go to facebook.com/this is the conversation project or x.com/th_conversation. And what you do is every 50 minutes or so, we post an article with headlines like these and links like those. And you just engage in them. That lets me know what stories are conversational, what stories are worthy of talking about, what stories you want to chat up. This is how we get around the mainstream media and the breaking news that doesn't actually break but sticks around. How we're getting around what's basically wall-to-wall coverage in Los Angeles because there's nothing going on that's more bleeds it leads right now. But there are other things going on in other places that are kind of important. And if you miss them, you'll miss them. Trump pulling back on Pell grants and the Congress member going to resign after the vote for the big, beautiful bill, and something like this Southern Baptist Convention story, which is an interesting story if you're not a member of a religious group or of a SBC particular. But these are things that you might want to know about because they have ripple effects and unintended consequences going forward. So follow us on our feeds, engage in the stories, hit the like button, hit the emoji you want to, share them, read them, do what you want to do with them, reply to them in comments there on the websites, that being Facebook and X. And the higher score of engagement, the more people actually literally engage in the stories, better chance we have a talk about them. We'll pick 8 of the top engaged stories for tomorrow to give you tomorrow. And then we'll cut most of those into hot takes, shorter versions, so you can complain about them in the video versions. And as I said earlier, you can complain about them whatever. Now, one of the ironic things about this is it usually takes about 2 days for a story, because I'm a lower ended tiered creator, to really gain some juice. And so while people are complaining about, hey, this story is old, yeah, breaking news. I posted it 2 days ago. You're seeing it now. You can't read time. That's specifically to a troll who probably isn't watching this or didn't get this far, because I'm pretty sure his attention span is actually of a goldfish. But for you guys out there, we need you to help this work. The Conversation Project does not work without you making this a conversation. Engage in the news story so we have something to chat up. We know what to chat up every single day. Very quickly, let's go to our sponsor, which is Ground News. This is the conversationproject.com/ground news is the website link we have for our affiliates. We get a small commission for your buys. You subscribe to their news plans, especially their Vantage plan. You get 40% off for your subscription by going to our link here. Ground News gives you a bigger picture of all the news by letting you see all the news. It gives you side-by-side comparisons of all the sources, all the places you get news, so you can view how you want to see it and view how you don't want to see it, if you will. View how other people, other places, other platforms are showing you your news. It becomes something that something of an interesting piece, if you will, to go through the Ground News when they have it. So if you live in a silo that is a certain bent of a political version, that is fine. But you can also see what the other silos are showing, whether you want to see it because you enjoy what other silos are showing or you actually want to get sort of a breakaway point. It's up to you. But a side-by-side comparisons of news stories and headlines, and the blind spot feature shows you exactly what your silo is not showing you is there. And we give you a good discount on that, 40% off the Vantage plan, which is awesome. What we use to help us work through our issues, our news stories here for the Conversation Project. So you get in on this as well. This is conversationproject.com/ground news. This is conversationproject.com/ground news, and get in on this one and get yourself some great news. Maybe not so great news if you're not wanting to see what you're going to see from the other side. Conversation Project lives online at this is a conversationproject.com. Our online home is where you can find past episodes of things we've done in the past. Also links to other things, including other forms you can view us or listen to us at. More sponsors, links to join our partnership page, becoming a partner, help us become funding, be part of the let's say board of directors for the Conversation Project, and help us fund things for this group and other things on the More Better Media. Now, wrapping things up for the day, I want to remind you, I just said the website, I'll say it one more time. Our website home is conversationproject.com for this Conversation Project. Now, our email address, so we can chat things up, is the conversation inbox at gmail.com. You can see that and you can conversate, go back and forth as you want to with us back and forth. the feeds on Facebook and X allow you to vote up stories, essentially. Give us a chance to know what stories are worthy of talking about. I'm not sure if worthier is a word either. Like just like say conversationalist, conversation things. But you actually help us push the stories. You push the agenda, if you will. So there's that. But you help us pick the stories that go through by your engagement. We take the top half of stories, essentially the ones that get the most engagement, and we pick from those the 8 that we'll put in for Tuesday through Friday, 10 for Monday of 30 stories. 30 or so stories, 45 stories out of 90 there going forward. So what stories you want to chat up today or tomorrow from today? Yeah, it gets the meta thing, a time thing gets into a loop. Let us know. Let us know so we can engage with them with you as well. I want to thank you so much for people who are watching live. We have some commenters in right here. So they were, of course, a couple stories back. So we're going back and forth. So we will see how these things play out going forward. But they seem to be highlighting the issue with the, I'm not sure they're in order. One is kind of an issue about the willful childlessness, and one is talking about Pell Grants for colleges. So, like I said, these are stories that probably got missed with what was going on in LA, because that's important. That's real. There's so many things going on, what's going on in LA, but there's so many things going on around the world that we want to have conversations about all of them. Thank you so much for helping us join in on those conversations. Love you, mean it. See you this time tomorrow if you're watching us live, or this time tomorrow if you're watching us on a replay, because you tend to want to see it at 4 in the afternoon. Good for us. Make sure you subscribe so you get this in your feed. Don't go searching for it, and comment as you want to.